Hey, truth seekers, welcome back. Zach here. It's July 11th, 2016. The big news story today, the supposed killing of two bailiffs in a Michigan courthouse. In this video, we're going to examine how this is more coded propaganda, part of the ongoing agenda, part of the ongoing narrative that we've been talking about in recent weeks. Earlier this year, there was a bill signed called Blue Lives Matter. And that bill, the basis of it is protecting police with more funding for things such as enhanced body armor, higher power weapons, improved vehicles. All of these stories are part of that narrative saying police aren't safe enough, they need more firepower, they need more protection. What we're going to do is break down the story as we always do, and we're going to see how it syncs up with the recent Dallas shooting. As we read the article, we will see the mention of Dallas. For the majority of the day, CNN had this up as their top story. They just recently demoted it, brought back up the Dallas story front page and center, as you just saw. Moved this to the secondary corner. But for the majority of the day, it was the top story looking just like this: two bailiffs dead at courthouse. And if you're new here, gematria is the practice of coding numbers into words. The mainstream media is very much aware of this language and uses it actively in their headlines. Two bailiffs dead at courthouse has gematria of 113, a very special number to Freemasonry, to Zionism. It has everything to do with lying to people. In Bava Kama 113a, which is the Jewish Talmud, it says it's okay for Jewish people to lie to people who aren't Jewish. The rule is 113. It is Zionist Jews who control the mainstream media. Mainstream equals 113. Dishonest equals 113. Green screen 113. Perjury 113. And again, this number routinely coded into propaganda. Here is another example. So, as I've been explaining, if you haven't seen my recent work on the Dallas shooting, the Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, in all of those videos, and many times before that as well, I've explained in these police officer shootings, they do it in locations where 46 is coded. 46 seems to be the number of police officer sacrifice. The word sacrifice itself has gematria 46. So does Michigan, as in Michigan State. And bailiffs, the plural, two bailiffs killed. Bailiffs also has that gematria of 46. So does Dallas Police, so does Dallas, Texas, so does Baton Rouge. Number shows up again and again. We'll see how in this article they bring up the 7/7 Dallas shootings. Notice that the word court has gematria of 77. This happened in St. Joseph, Michigan. St. Joseph, Michigan sums to 77, just like court. Also, just like police officer, just like police department. Think about the Dallas Police Department supposedly suffering the most loss of life since September 11th. Rest assured they did not. We were hoaxed. Fairly certain that nobody died at all in Dallas. If anyone did die, it was an inside job. The shooter is a made-up fictional character. Please see my video on the coding in the shooter accused in Dallas. So let's just read the article. Two. Remember, the word two has the same gematria as Freemasonry. They both sum to 58, special number. In Dallas, it began with two officers shot. For the first hour, that's how they reported it. Then all night into the early morning, the body count ticked up. And it seems as the days go on, it keeps ticking up. Two court bailiffs were killed and a deputy was injured Monday after an inmate grabbed an officer's gun outside a holding cell in a Michigan courthouse. Berrien County Sheriff L. Paul Bailey said. We'll get to his name and the county. The inmate made it into a public hallway where he shot a civilian in the arm, Bailey said. Other law enforcement officers opened fire and killed the man, he said. Notice how no names are given. The deputy and civilians suffered non-life-threatening injuries and were treated at Lakeland Health in St. Joseph and are in stable condition, Bailey said. Bailey wouldn't say why the inmate was in custody, which officer had the gun that was taken, or whether any protocols were violated. It's because none of this happened. He's just reading off a piece of paper with no emotion, probably wondering why he has to participate in this propaganda. The slain officers worked a long time in law enforcement and had served as bailiffs about 10 years each. Our hearts are torn apart, Bailey said. They were our friends. They were our colleagues. I've known them for over 30 years. The shootings occurred days after the slaying of 5 police officers in Dallas. Authorities didn't mention any connection to those killings, but Governor Rick Snyder said, "This is a particularly tough time for law enforcement, so I ask everybody to reach out and be supportive of law enforcement." So the county this happened in, Berrien, it has gematria 44, like kill, like officer. Numbers that are always coded into these killing stories. This morning on CNN, I heard them talking about how in Dallas, 48 officers resigned just before the supposed shooting, and they said it was low pay that was the reason for them resigning, and they said the average officer's pay in the United States is $44,000 a year. The word officer equals 44, average pay 44,000. I'm telling you, the mainstream media just reports bogus information by the numbers. It has zero credibility. It's all lies, no truth. The name of the sheriff, Sheriff L. Paul Bailey in Gematria 187, the homicide code, that's interesting. The small way 88, that's because the name sheriff is 44, and L. Paul Bailey, as he goes by, also 44. Berrien, the county 44, officer 44, trooper 44. We'll get to the governor, too. I always say the governors are connected to these shootings. We'll talk about Governor Rick Snyder in just a moment. He tweeted, "We all need to reach out and be supportive of law enforcement in our state and across the country." And this is what it's all about, building up a narrative for law enforcement, for more funding for them. In the past decade, we've seen the police become a lot more militarized. It seems they still have a ways to go. Probably won't stop until they're all driving around in tanks. The shooting happened about 2:30 p.m. on the 3rd floor of the Berrien County Courthouse in St. Joseph, located on the eastern shore of Lake Michigan. As a deputy and a bailiff removed the inmate from a holding cell to take him into a courtroom, Bailey said. They secured the door, and the inmate started fighting with the bailiff and the deputy, he said. Typically when you're taken out of a holding cell and brought into a courtroom, your hands are still handcuffed. So I'm imagining if this, in their fictitious story, that he did this while in handcuffs. They secured the door and the inmate started fighting with the bailiff and the deputy, he said. The inmate disarmed one of the officers, Bailey said. He killed the 2 bailiffs and wounded the deputy before running into the public corridor where the other officers shot and killed him. Bailey said he didn't know whether the inmate was handcuffed. Oh, there it is. They didn't know. But he should have been. I mean, they don't take you out of your handcuffs when they take you in the courtroom. Just like that woman in the back of the car in Minnesota in the hoax, Philando Castile somehow got her phone back and started recording herself while handcuffed in the back of the car. It doesn't make any sense. The courthouse will be closed on Tuesday while Michigan State Police investigate. St. Joseph is a town of about 8,300 on the eastern shore of Lake Michigan, about 35 miles north of South Bend, Indiana, and some 100 miles by car from Chicago. They sure love their numbers. What are the point of those details? So Governor Rick Snyder, as I always say, these shootings are synced up with the governors. Rick Snyder in Gematria sums to 54, just like the numerology of today's date. Fitting day for a tribute to the governor. What else I notice is his full name, Richard Dale Snyder, has Gematria of 87. I was talking about how in the Dallas shooting, they were coding a lot of 87 on the story and the headlines. Mayor Mike Rawlings, the mayor of Dallas, the story was all synced up with him. Dallas in Gematria equals 49. The shooting came 49 days before the mayor's birthday. His last name, Rawlings, equals 49 in Gematria, plus a whole lot more. Showed how in Minnesota it synced up with the governor. In Texas it synced up with the governor. All of this gun control narrative, it benefits the Democratic Party more in terms of the election. The argument's more persuasive for them. It's more evidence for them. This is what their base is more into. Hillary Clinton is surely the next president. A lot of stories right now are coded 87. I showed how when Hillary Clinton weighed in on the Dallas shooting, they emphasized a headline that summed to 87. Hillary Clinton, when she was First Lady, said that someday the Democratic Party will add a bunch of new fees, new taxes, mandatory insurance for gun owners. And I'm telling you, all of this shooting narrative, it contributes to that as well. You know? I noticed that from today until the governor's birthday is 39 days, 39 books in the Old Testament, which the Zionists go by. New York in gematria equals 39, and the reason I'm bringing up New York is because it ties in with Hillary Clinton. The Clinton political dynasty goes back to the original governors of New York from the beginning of this nation. I noticed this governor's full name in gematria sums out to the same thing as New York City as well. And perhaps there's a bigger, perhaps the pinnacle of this ongoing shooting hoax agenda, perhaps it will be in New York someday. That would be a fitting spot. But remember, the Masons and Zionists, they operate most heavily out of New York and Chicago. These are important cultural centers. It's a little bit of speculation on my part that that's what it's coding out to, but that would make a lot of sense in light of the research I've done and what's presented in the book that I'm finishing up. So, another hoax by the numbers. They are having this in a town with the 77 gematria, Court 77. Another unbelievable story that doesn't make any sense. All the typical coding here. All right, Truth Seeker, until next time.